Hi guys, and welcome to the latest episode of Swan TV. I am delighted, as I am most months delighted to be joined by people, but this month specifically delighted to be joined by a good friend of mine and someone I have had the privilege of working with before when he was in the energy sector historically. Ted Hewett, social media manager at Total. Ted, good morning.
Good morning. Very, very pleased to be here.
Do you want to start off, just introduce yourself and what you do?
Yeah, cool. So my name's Ted. I've worked in loads and loads of different jobs. I first met James and yourself, James, when I worked, as you mentioned, in the energy industry. I worked in the energy industry for a couple of different suppliers and for a couple of different companies for nearly 10 years. Since then, though, since leaving the energy industry nearly 5 years ago now, I have been working in technology and in particular in HR and employee engagement technology. I kind of fell completely in love with the idea. I've always loved technology, but I love the idea that technology can do great things for businesses. And I think it was a lot of the experiences that I had kind of before, if you like, that has somewhat coloured my image of, I guess, what work should be. And I'm really passionate about this whole idea that the future of work is kind of opened and ready to be explored. When I first joined work, when I was in my early 20s, which feels like a million years ago, work was that thing that you weren't supposed to love, and I always felt that that wasn't the right approach to it. I really wanted to love a job and do something that really, to me, mattered. So sort of was really lucky that I kind of fell into HR tech, and I've been absolutely loving it ever since.
What are some of the most sort of, creative strategies that you have seen from businesses? Not necessarily just over the last 8 months, maybe before, but when it comes to enhancing their company culture, what's some of the most creative strategies you've seen?
It's a good question. I was thinking about this a lot this morning. The first one that jumped into my head, I know a certain managing director, who records a video a day for his team. I don't know if you might have met him.
I might have heard of him. Yeah, I might have heard of him.
But I was thinking about creativity, and I think comms in general, internal communications, all of a sudden has this really pivotal role in business, where I think it was a bit of an afterthought and maybe tagged on a lot before. Actually, since we're all sitting in our dining rooms, our kitchens, if you're lucky, you've got a little spare bedroom that you convert into an office. The fact that you need to be communicated to really consistently has never been great, and that need has never been greater. And I think about when we're talking creativity, video is just this wide open platform, man, where you've got this, you can do so much with it, not only just with editing and clever visuals and stuff, but storytelling. Like, how do we actually connect with people? And I can't think of a more engaging medium than something that was tailored and curated and made for me. And that's really, when I've seen good comms campaigns over the last 6 or 8 months, it's not always been just doing it isn't enough. Actually thinking how can I actually engage with someone? How can I make this interesting? How can I make this something I would watch? That's really, I think that's the thing a lot of people are kind of looking for and are trying to accomplish. And also just in terms of getting those messages across the line, they're the things that people seem to be most engaging with. People are looking more, again, that work and life thing is really blurred together because we now work where we live and we live where we work, right? So actually, to be communicated with meaningfully, I need my business to communicate with me in the way that YouTube does, in the way that Instagram does, and it's those sorts of steps forward, and thinking differently about the way in which employees are communicated with and the way in which they communicate back. That seems to me, and from speaking to lots and lots of people, that's the thing that's transcribing into great culture, is thinking differently about employee experience and injecting things like video into it.
Yeah. What do you see as the biggest challenges for business leaders at the moment when they're trying to run a business virtually almost?
Yeah, we conducted a big piece of research on this recently because we noticed some things in our own data from our own customers about how they're using technology and actually what's going on with their own sentiment analysis. What we found, there's two kind of big ones: is trust and familiarity, and both of which are on the decline. Everyone's kind of been living off this borrowed timepiece from the before time, the BC time, before COVID, right?
Yeah.
Where we all knew each other. We all sat in the same room 5 days a week and got on and had good relationships. And that was what people would traditionally call strong culture. That all got taken away out of nowhere, right? And a lot of teams have seen very little in the way of churn and turnover. A lot of hiring might have frozen. And yes, sure, there's lots of businesses that have had really horrid and difficult redundancy periods. That's really tough. But a lot of companies, and many, many companies, have seen very little in terms of change for teams. And that's about to change. That's businesses starting to get back to relative normal. And I think there's a lot more hiring and moving going on than there has been for the last 6 months. But that familiarity that we had is starting to erode away, both from new people joining and people leaving, but also just from having spent so long apart. And actually, it's in those familiarities that you see things like, how do people ask for help? How do people know if they're going to get a promotion or work towards getting a promotion? Or what if you do need to make redundancy? Like, who do you choose? Like, all of those things are colored by things like visibility and the relationship you have with your manager and how your availability and all of those sorts of things that are coupled. But when we distilled them all, it really came down to familiarity. Like, and that was a great measure for us. Like, how familiar are your teams, both with each other, with their leadership team, but also the wider business as a total. And it's a great benchmark, I think, for how well you're coping with this kind of remote working piece.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies aren't addressing it. A lot of companies believe that, we'll have a weekly Zoom meeting and that'll be enough. And it's not.
It's not.
That's a single point in time. You need to be building familiarity between individuals and with teams in lots and lots of different ways. You have to be really intentional with how you're doing it. Long gone are the days where we could just throw a beanbag and a foosball table in a room and just let people get on with it, right? Like,
absolutely,
it just doesn't work like that anymore.
With that, it's a great point. There are companies struggling with it, obviously, getting their guys to be engaged with the culture of the business. Well, what tips and advice would you give to those types of companies where they are maybe struggling to get people on board with what they're trying to do?
Yeah, so like you mean like as the business, so getting employees to buy in or getting a leadership team to buy in? Because I see both. I see both as a challenge.
Yeah, they're both a challenge. They are both a challenge. I think for the purpose of this, I suppose it's trying to get the employees to buy in.
Yeah, number one, you can't communicate enough. There is no such thing as over communicating at the moment. If you think you've over communicated, odds are you've under communicated, because people like, everyone is different and everyone ingests information in a very different way. So like, it's not good enough just to send an email around going, this is a change in policy. Like, actually, you'll have to put it out on your different channels. So if you're using Slack or Teams or Yammer or whatever, you've got to put it out on there. Then you've got to tell all your team managers and your line managers and explain what that team challenge means. So maybe you need to do some extra comms around that. You probably need to do something at your old company, All Hands, which I'm assuming that a lot of companies do. We do one, and I know you guys do one. Even bigger companies, having that kind of just having that kind of get together, that whole team comms piece. Like, so sure, it can feel a bit overwhelming, but like, actually, we need to be putting out as much. There needs to be so many opportunities for someone to learn the thing you're trying to tell them. Like, you can't do it enough. So that would be kind of the big one, I think. I think the other one as well is to think about what your workforce actually wants from this experience. So a lot of businesses have thought, I mean, I used to work in employee benefits, right? That was before I kind of worked on the culture tech thing. Helping businesses with like employee discount schemes and cycle to work and those sorts of pieces. Like, those things are great. I'd have a real think though about, like, are your benefits ready for remote working? So okay, like, cinema vouchers are great, but all the cinemas are shut. Like, what are the other things that we can actually be doing that really benefit people? And they're really quick to change. Like, they're not difficult to implement. If you've already got benefits, if you're using a third-party benefits provider, just ring them up and talk to them about it, because they'll help you. Alternatively, there's tons and tons of things you can do around, and particularly with the Christmas period coming up. Like, we're thinking about, we've run like weekly games. So we play Among Us every week at the moment, but we've also played like Jackbox games in case people have seen them. I run Dungeons and Dragons every week for the office.
Lovely, love it.
Which I'll tell you more about if you're ever interested and have 5 hours. But like, it's thinking about, like, again, we're a bunch of nerds, right? So like, for us, those sorts of things make a load of sense, and they all help build familiarity and get people involved with the culture. And we work really hard to make it as inclusive for everyone as possible. So like, okay, I'm not the biggest fan of a quiz myself. Yeah, I run a quiz every month because it's really helpful for people who don't necessarily want to play a game to actually come in and have something they can interact with and something they can do meaningfully. It's not, you can't just pick like one thing and go, cool, this is how it's going to get done. Like, you have to pick so many different options, both for comms and for engagement, I think.
On that lines, is there any bits of kit or technology that you would recommend for businesses? So if they're looking to improve their company culture by using technology, is there anything
so have you heard of this thing called Totem?
Yeah, I have heard of Totem. Yeah, talk to me more about Totem.
No, right. Like, I'm going to talk about two pieces. In case there's a bit more to it. I'll talk about like a general thing. I think when I think about technology at work, the best piece of advice I've ever had is, don't think about the tech, think about the program around using the tech. So like, for example, Zoom, right? Zoom has had this huge inflation of people buying it. Microsoft Teams, like this massive user number upsurge, as you'd expect to, right? People need to communicate. The value isn't in the technology, the value is in how you go about utilizing it. So like, if you just dump technology on people, they will use it however they see fit, and that's not necessarily driving towards the right objective for your company culture. So whether that is, do we want to flatten the hierarchy? Do we want to improve two-way comms? Are we trying to build familiarity or trust or teamwork, or like how do we facilitate particular working groups if people are in call centers or they can't have their phones on them? Like there's so many different things. You really need to think about the whole program, not just the technology, and how the program then fits into it. So I mean, like, I guess that's like in terms of bits of kit, though. I mean, it'd be hard for me not to plug my own business. We are
Please do.
some...
That's why you're here. So please do.
So from our perspective, we built Totem with the objective in mind of creating great workplace culture. Like we knew that was a multiplier for our business, and like how we have gone about both we have kind of two businesses. One is like a consultancy where we build, we're a digital product studio and build B2B technology. But the other side of it is Totem, which is the supporting great workplace cultures and how we go about doing that. And so we wanted Totem to be this amazing amplifier of culture, and it does two main things that we think are really pivotal. Number one is the kind of one-to-many comms and engagement piece. Like, where does your culture live outside of work? Because you no longer can rely on the office for your culture to live there anymore. Like, even if we start going back, there's going to be some component of work from home forever, probably.
Absolutely, 100%.
Right. So you need to think about how we can house that, how we can have that somewhere where it's inclusive and that we're building for remote first in mind, because otherwise we'll end up having these really siloed and I guess quite not unfair, but difficult ways in which to communicate with people. So there's a kind of core Totem platform itself, but the really exciting bit and the thing that we're about to launch in the next couple of weeks is real-time cultural measurement. So what we've been able to do is, without having to survey people at all, we can actually take novel data that people share both on Totem, so whether that's recognition or just sharing a picture or a video or whatever, take all of that, run it through our AI and machine learning tool, and that gives you a real-time analysis of your culture. So you can tell, are people happier? Do people trust each other more? Are they connecting with each other more? Are they breaking down silos? All of those things answered without having to necessarily ask people. And then it changes what you do with surveys. You can then start to think more specifically about enabling employee voice and like having a better conversation rather than like an ENPS the whole time, which I think is what a lot of people have kind of jumped to do to say they understand what their culture is doing. So two sides of it: measurement and the doing, building trust, measuring trust. The two coupled together hand in hand, and for us, that's really where we're going. I think that's that to me would be a very good investment. But I mean, I would say
that. Check it out if you haven't already. Check them out. Now moving on to my favourite part, which is the free items. So every as these videos go out, we ask people to bring along free videos in different colours to celebrate the essential workers.
3 videos of different colours, 3 items of different colours. I think you mean.
Oh my days! Yeah, 3 items of different colours. Well, we can have different videos. Maybe I'll add some. Maybe I can change to add some filters. Maybe I can change to add some filters to this video, and we'll just be different every time. But yes, I do mean 3 items of different colours. I think you were just worried that I'd asked for something that you haven't brought.
Yeah. Goodness, what are we doing now?
Yeah, but 3 items of different colours to celebrate the essential workers and everyone else that's working extremely hard during this time to keep everyone safe. So, Ted, what is your first item?
That's interesting you mentioned. The NHS thing. So I've got a lot of my family work in the NHS. Both my sisters, their husbands, like we they're all kind of key workers. So the first item I brought is a harmonica that my sister bought me. Which is in this beautiful teal color. I am a rubbish harmonica player. I'm an okay drummer and I'm an okay guitar player. But for me, music has been, both in lockdown, but just in life, it's been one of those things that has delivered me joy in unsurmountable quantities. And it doesn't really matter. I've really come to understand it more, like particularly over the last 8 months, as I've been playing a lot more guitar and a lot less drums. It's a bit antisocial to be knocking on a drum kit in a flat, to be honest. But the fact that I have this ability to kind of go and play music at any time, it just feels really kind of opening to me, and feels like a really good place to start when I thought about items. So yeah, there's my. I was going
to say, you're going to give us.
Oh, you got to do it.
Gotta give us a little note.
Yeah, so I'm a horrible harmonica player. I won't make you listen to that much longer.
No, that's okay. First person we've had on Swan TV who's played an instrument. So there you go.
I was gonna get my really expensive guitar out, but I thought that would be bragging.
That can be next time.
I'll save that for the next one. So the second one, second item I brought is multicolored. And to me represents, I guess, a lot of the things I love. I love mystery and puzzles and challenges. I love them at work. I often think about work as like a series of puzzles that need to be solved.
Nice.
So I thought it apt that I bring my Rubik's Cube, which
and
is
completed as well.
well. So I learned how to solve a Rubik's Cube about 3 years ago because I was just fascinated with them, and I know that it's maths. They're just a series of algorithms that you can run. I haven't memorized them again, so I remember being able to do it for about a 2-week period, and now I definitely need a guide. But yeah, I just think these, not just these things, but these sorts of puzzles and those sorts of things that can be solved and have a really clear win criteria. Like,
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
fascinate me. So that's
how long did it take you to solve?
The first one probably 45 minutes, but I got it down to about 10 minutes.
Wow.
After a while, if I did it now, it would probably take me half an hour plus. And I mean, there's plenty of websites. If for anyone who's bored, it's a fascinating thing to kind of get your head around. And just it comes down to block learning in the end. So that's that. And then the third one, which I'm hoping you'll be able to see properly. I don't know, like if it'll come up on the camera.
Yeah, that does. That is very multicolored.
So this is my D20 from one of my sets of dice. It's a 20-sided dice that we use for playing Dungeons and Dragons. I never played D&D when I was a kid, and I wish I had. Like, I always just thought it was for dumb nerds, and it is for dumb nerds, but it really is. But I love it. I love it really dearly. I've been writing my own campaigns, so I've written something to the tune of 50,000 lines of text now for a group of players that we play at work. We play every week. I'm the dungeon master. But for me, I really wanted to get a multicolored one, not only because I thought it was cool and like represents a lot of the things I kind of believe in, I guess, not just the NHS, but all the things I think rainbows stand for. But for me, that's been a real creative output as well. Like, it's like if anyone's never played it, it's a short version. It's like playing a computer game, but with no guides. Like, you can do anything, you can be anyone, you can go anywhere, and I was going to say there's no rules. There's an enormous amount of rules. But none of they're kind of more guidelines. And as the person running the game, it's a fascinating thing to roll this.
Ted, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you ever so much for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me, man.
No worries. We will catch up soon. But have a great rest of your time on the run up to Christmas, whatever that may look like, and whatever we are able to do. But yeah, thank you for joining me. And guys, join us next time on Swan TV. Thanks for coming along.